I will try to describe some of the major reforms that are now undergoing in Italy on some different landscape, the institutional one, the labor market, and also the ones that will have more impact on the real estate. And I will also touch base on few comments on the restore of credibility of the Italian government vis-à-vis the European institution, and then also a few comments on how do we see the forecast for the year end, also in terms of investment turnover and occupational market, and also with some conclusion for the benefit maybe of the next panel. Basically, as said, this is the agenda on reforms on institutional side. I would say that the government took a number of ambitious decisions in order to speed up the lawmaking process, and basically the two major reforms are the abolition basically of the Senate lawmaking role. So basically from two chambers we will have one lawmaking chamber, and in addition we will have the abolition of the overlap between the central government lawmaking and the local government lawmaking that in the past created a lot of conflicts between the center and the local authorities, basically stopping the lawmaking process. In addition, an important area of reforms that in Spain already undergone and actually are also undergoing in Italy is on the labor market. The labor market has been an area of conflicts between many parties in Italy, and the new government has been, I would say, ambitious in his plan to create a reform called the Jobs Act, where basically the main fundamental is create more flexibility in the entry and in the exit, with the aim to increase new job creation, with the special creation of a job agency that is dedicated more to help the worker to find new jobs rather than to take the position in the current job with some forms of subsidies that not really help anybody to have a future. Another important aspect that has been announced a couple of weeks ago is a no-tax period for 3 years for the new hirings, and this has also been, let's say, a challenge to Italian entrepreneurs to try to hire new people in a more established situation. So these are, let me say, the most important element of the institutional and the labor market reforms, and frankly I think that a lot of rumor have been in the media, but back to basics, these are the two key messages that could help international investors in taking a view on the Italian market. In parallel, we can say that also a number of reforms have been taken with a direct impact on real estate, and we can basically mention 3 areas. The first is the new REITs regime, the new provisions in lease agreements, and new rules on financing. With regard to the REITs legislation, actually the government tried to harmonize as much as possible the Italian REITs to the European peers in order to create a more transparent and a more flexible capital market, in order to attract more and more international investors. Italy, respect to Spain, hasn't experienced the growth of the tsunami that Spain experienced in the first 6 months of 2014, and we believe that this new change of regulation could help in growing the market in the next semesters, and could represent also a way out for the private equity buyers that recently have amassed billions of real estate in Italy, and they could have a way out through IPOs in the listed capital markets. But an even more important reform is on the new lease agreement structure. Historically, Italy has a tenant-friendly lease agreement structure, and today over 150,000 euro per annum rent, landlord and tenant could agree in a free market model. So in the past the tenant was really taken care, because they usually were small and weak. Today we have tenants like Google that maybe are even much more powerful than the current landlords. And so the environment is changing, and we believe that this is really an important change that could allow counterparties to agree longer or shorter terms, rent increase, mark to market. So really an open market situation. Third, we will have a new regulation on new financing. Basically today, with the new law, insurance companies will be allowed to lend, to finance, without passing through a financial intermediary. This doesn't mean that the insurance companies will become banks, but this definitely could mean that in some areas, in some sectors, or for some plays, maybe less linked to the CMBS world, there will be a new source of debt that could allow, let me say, the growth of the market. I have battled to insert this slide because it's quite, let me say, one that needs some comment, because Italy have been, let me say, a bad student for a long time, I would say until 2011, but I would like also be firm in saying that starting from 2011, Italy, with the change of government and with the number of reforms, not only the one that we mentioned, but on the pensions, have been very, let's say, driven by discipline, and for example, Italy has been one of the few G20 countries to respect the deficit versus GDP ratio that, of course, didn't help Italy to create more growth over the last 3 years. And so let me say that we are also aware of the fact that the space where we have moved, it was very limited. And reforms and credibility will be very important to address a number of requests, not only to the European Commission, but also to demonstrate to international investors that we are creating an investor-friendly environment. Few comments on how we see the forecast for the year end. We have been very busy, not only as a team, but also as a market, not really as Spain, but let's say I was counting that in the last 18 months we have worked on buy side and sell side on more than 2.5 billion of euros, and actually we have a pipeline from now to the next 6 months that is over 1.5 billion just as our team. So we are keeping ourselves busy. I would say that there is a sound pipeline. We do not see overheating in the market, so the crowd is still very limited. Most of the investors are international. We, as said, we haven't experienced the domestic IPOs, creating a competition vis-à-vis Blackstone, Cerberus, or the others. So today we are still mainly dominated by those kind of purchasers. And frankly, I think that over the next, let's say, month and semesters, they will continue to play an important role in our market. Few comments on the occupational side, that in 2014 versus 2013 is giving some positive signals, more concentrated in Milano. So we see that the take-up is now moving in the right direction, and we have been busy in a number of leasing activity that demonstrate how Milan is decorrelated respect the trend of the Italian economy. These are forecasts made by Oxford Economics, so they are not Italian influenced, and you can see that the forecast on employment are significantly higher in Milan rather than the rest of Italy, because Milano always represented, let me say, the machine, the engine area of the Italian economy. But I think that this is an important message, because also for investors having a look in those numbers is quite important. And just a final message that is like the summary of what I've tried to explain. A number of reforms have been let's say, undergoing. Credibility have been restored through the technocrats government and also under the new government. So we believe that Italy can play an important role, and that could attract significant investments. Today the most active investors are Northern American. We see that there is an open up situation also vis-à-vis the Asian capital. Last week Milano hosted the European Asian meeting that was focused to let's say grow the business interaction between European countries and Asia, and we are happy that it took place in Milano, because it gives let's say positive sign also to the international business community.